Over the years working as a documentary cinematographer, I've spent a ton of time working in extreme environments, including over 100 days living in a tent, working on a feature documentary, and 4 seasons of the super popular survival show Alone. And while YouTube loves to talk about lenses and drones and all that fun stuff, that's just not what gets you through a 16-hour day of shooting in a blizzard. So this video is all about the tools I rely on, the everyday carry stuff that I pack to keep me and my cameras going, no matter what the environment throws at me. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm a huge sucker for those EDC videos floating around YouTube. I'm looking at you, Peter McKinnon. You get me with those things every time, even though I know better. But out in the kinds of places I seem to find myself working in, I don't try to bring the newest or coolest stuff with me, no matter how much I might try to convince myself I should buy that spring-loaded pocket knife or 100,000 lumen tactical flashlight or whatever. That stuff's really fun for me, but what I need are tough, reliable things that serve a very specific purpose and do their job well over a long period of time without costing too much money. So if you're looking for carbon fiber wallets or titanium nail clippers or something, this might not be the video for you, but if you're interested in what a working filmmaker actually carries with them in a rugged, everyday environment, you're in the right place, or mostly the right place anyways, because I'm not really set up for these top-down kind of product shots, so I'm just filming this second angle here on my phone. Let me know what you think and whether or not I need to start looking for a cheap mirrorless camera on Facebook to rig up there full time. So the very first thing I'm gonna do when I'm ready to leave base camp for the day is put on this thing, which is my chest rig. Now, maybe it's pretty obvious, but I'll just show you. It goes over your neck, and then these straps come around and clip into the body here. And then once it's locked in, it sits tight to your chest. And since I got it, I pretty much never leave for a remote job without it. Now, so this one is made by this company Coaxure. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and I really don't know anything about them because I was given this as a gift by my good friend Pablo Durana, who is one of the world's top DPs when it comes to adventure sports. Seriously, he's shot with Alex Honnold and Jimmy Chin and all the biggest names in that world, so his recommendations are more than enough for me. But there's a few reasons that I'll point out why I've never found anything that works quite as well as this. First of all, it's super light and very simply made, which is exactly how I want my gear to be out in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's not a lot of things that can break on this. Some of the other options I've seen online are cool, but they're really chunky. And while it seems great to have waterproof zippers and all that, in reality, what I want is something small and tough that I just don't notice I'm wearing because I'm gonna wear it all day, every day. It's also really easy to take on and off, which is key when you're wearing 5 base layers and a winter jacket. But most importantly, this radio slot is angled out to the side instead of going straight up and down, which means the antenna points away from the camera instead of sticking straight up into it. That might sound like a minor thing, but trust me, if your rig is just constantly getting caught on the antenna every time you take the camera on and off your shoulder or go from shooting like this to shooting from the chest, it's extremely annoying at best, and at worst, it'll break your radio or maybe ruin the shot. There's not much to this thing. It's just a zippered main pocket that'll open in a second. Then there's the main radio sleeve, and then a second sleeve here that's for a GPS unit if you want to use one that I only sometimes use, and then one more third sleeve over here that I usually put bear bangers or spray or something like that in if I need to. I've tried a lot of brands over the years and I just keep coming back to this one, so take that for whatever it's worth. And before I open it up and pull out everything inside, the most obvious thing to talk about, I guess other than this safety whistle, is the radio here, because radios are probably the most essential piece of EDC gear in the kinds of places that I work anyways, and not having one is a serious safety risk. Radios are how we call for a helicopter or a boat to come get us. It's how we stay in contact with the base camp to let them know about any problems, and it's how the safety team lets us know if there's anything dangerous coming our way, like wildlife or bad weather. Good comms are super important on any film crew, but there's nothing worse out there than a radio that doesn't work. So if you're gonna go with one of these, pick a good one. Trust me, calling for a pickup and getting nothing but static is not a nice feeling.
Someone answer me.
I'm more or less brand agnostic when it comes to radios, and there are all sorts of budget options on the market these days that might work great for you. Personally, I trust these Motorola's the most because mainly that's just what we used to use when I worked in forestry back in the day, and they're extremely reliable. I own 4 of these myself, and I'm pretty sure these are, CP185s, and they've just never let me down. Now, they're definitely not cheap, and I think right now it's about $700 or $800 there's a radio right now, but I was able to buy a set of 4 used ones online for a huge discount. So keep your eye on Facebook Marketplace for that kind of thing. I also know Baofeng is a popular budget brand, and they make a bunch of models that are quite a bit cheaper than Motorola's, so worth checking out too if you don't mind sacrificing a little bit of build quality and maybe some range too. Now, if we open it up, inside, there's a bunch more smaller items. Most of this stuff will come with me, not always, but most of the time. So let's dig in there and see. The first thing here is a spare radio battery. Though honestly, if you have good radios, these aren't as important. These Motorola's will typically last for around 2 or 3 days, depending on how cold it is. So unless you're really off grid and can't recharge at night, you probably don't need this. Still not a bad idea to have an emergency, though it's pretty rare that I can't make it through a day unless I forgot to charge them or something. I also usually carry around this bunch of lens tissue, which normally I try and keep inside a little Ziploc bag, which is obviously to keep my lenses clean. And I say clean, but really all my stuff is filthy out there all the time, no matter what I do. So I'm not aiming for pristine, but there's a difference between a few smudges in a lens that's just completely covered in water drops or condensation. So it's great to have something other than a t-shirt to use. And in a pinch, you can use them as fire starters, which can be super nice when it's freezing out. To make that happen, I'll also carry a lighter in there, and I can't overstate what a morale difference it can make to just stand around a little fire for 20 minutes or something before getting back to work. Also in here is a multi-tool, and I personally think a multi-tool is more versatile than a fixed blade knife, especially when you're dealing with camera gear. And my personal choice is this Leatherman Wave. Now, full transparency, this one hasn't been the smoothest in terms of opening and closing, and at some point since I've had it, which I think is now probably close to 10 years, I must have smashed it pretty hard because it sometimes gets stuck. Now, I really wish it was easier to open one-handed like some of the other higher end models I've seen out there, but it doesn't, and it seems kind of dumb to throw it away and get a new one, so I'm just gonna stick with it. Some of the best attachments are the knife, which is really good for cutting paracord or whatever, food. I also use the serrated saw blade attachment a lot. You can see it's covered in spruce gum, I think, or some sort of sap. I use this a lot to cut branches out of the way of like a time lapse or maybe a macro shot or something, but really, really handy. Also, the pliers are so helpful. Like if you can't get off a broken ND filter off your lens, or if your fingers are too cold to get a good grip on something, pliers. But the real reason I like this Wave model is because of these. These are little hex bits and screwdriver attachments that fit into this multi-tool. And these are really handy for doing everyday maintenance on cameras, and there's just about every bit you could practically need here. I do have separate tool kits and full sets of Allen wrenches and stuff like that, but just having them all together in this tiny little set means I can just carry one thing and be covered in an emergency, which I love. Now, the Wave isn't the top model, and it's also not the cheapest one. I think it's somewhere right in the middle, but for my needs, it does the job perfectly. Then I've also got a headlamp, which is probably one of the most underrated pieces of EDC there is, because if you can't see what you're doing, everything takes 5 times as long. I don't carry this in my pouch as much as my backpack, but it is coming with me every single day. Plus, if you get caught out late at night, it can be insanely hard to walk through the bush without a light, and having one attached to your head keeps your hands free for work. Now, a lot of those EDC videos I've seen feature these like crazy handheld lights that are bright enough to be seen from space, but for my work, that's overkill, and the hands-free version is way more useful. This one is from Black Diamond, and it is a Storm 400, I think, and it does everything I need it to do. One really helpful thing is to get one with a red light filter on it, because it doesn't ruin your night vision when you turn it on, and it also doesn't blind everyone when you look at them to talk. So whatever brand you pick, headlamps are a must-have, and I'd highly suggest getting one with both red and white light. Some come with green and blue and all sorts of stuff, but for me, red is just the most useful. Okay, what else do I have in here? I've got some lip balm, which I might not count as EDC because it's not really a tool, but not really sure where the definitions of EDC start and stop, to be honest. Anyways, super nice to have when you're getting blasted by wind all day, and make sure you get something with SPF in it for the sun. Apart from that, I'll also keep a pen and notebook in there sometimes. It's solely dependent on the show how much I'll use it. For something like Alone, where I'm not really dealing with people all that much and mainly focused on filming B-roll, I'll probably leave this behind, which is why this one's empty. But for a show where I'm doing a lot of interviews, it can be really helpful to keep track of quotes or questions as they come up. And personally, I think writing is way better than looking at your phone all the time. This one is a field notes, obviously, but it has waterproof paper, which is kind of cool. And for a pen, I like these Zebra stainless steel pens a lot. It's a F701. Nothing fancy about this. It's less than 10 bucks. I just really like that it's almost impossible to break and has a solid grip on it. I also really love mechanical pencils, and sometimes I think about getting a really nice, EDC specific pen, but honestly it feels a bit silly to carry around a $100 pen that I'm more than likely gonna lose within a couple of months. At home I might use a fountain pen, but outside the potential for the ink to leak just isn't worth it, so keep it simple. Oh, and as another nice bonus feature of this harness is that if you open it up halfway, it makes a little writing shelf that you can actually use as a miniature desk out there. I'm sure it wasn't designed with that in mind, but it works, so if the engineers thought of that, that's pretty cool. All right, let's get rid of the harness and put all this stuff aside and look at what else I'm carrying. I guess a good place to take this would be the last piece of gear I take off every day, and that's my watch. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why watches aren't necessary in 2026, and we all have phones with us all the time that can tell the time more accurately than a Rolex, but I still wear a mechanical watch every single day, and it's not just because I think they're cool pieces of engineering, though that's also true. Out in the field, it's because I just don't want to be relying on my phone all the time. For starters, a phone battery can die, and when you're working with helicopters and things that require sticking to schedules and it's -30, that's kind of a problem. Phones are also hard to get in and out of your pockets when you're wearing gloves especially, and if it's -40, you do not want to take off your gloves every time you need to know what time it is. I've also seen enough iPhones dropped onto rocks or into rivers never to be seen again, and considering how expensive they are these days, it's just not worth it to be pulling it out of your pocket 10 times an hour. A watch, especially a tough mechanical watch like this one, is really easy to check without taking off any of your layers. It's also really weather resistant. You can go down to, I don't even know, 100 meters, 200 meters, something further than I'll ever go. And personally, I think they look great too. I'm a bit of a watch nerd and I have a kind of mini collection at home. But for the last 2 years, my favorite working watch has been this guy, the Hamilton Field Khaki. And my mom gave me this for my 40th birthday, which is really nice. It has a bit of sentimental value. And it's a Swiss-made watch with a long history. Actually, they were made for the military during the Second World War, and I love the timeless design. I got the mechanical winding version over the automatic for 2 reasons. First, it's really thin for a watch, which means it doesn't get caught on stuff like backpack straps when you're constantly taking them on and off. And second, because I really actually like the act of winding this thing at night. This one has an 80-hour power reserve, so it'll run for more than 3 days without winding it, but I kind of find something very satisfying about physically interacting with it, so it's no real hardship and it kind of makes me feel connected to the thing in a weird way. I mean, listen to how satisfying that is. No? Just me? Anyways, there are a million options out there and you don't need a mechanical Swiss watch when you can just as easily rock a battery-powered Casio. So that's up to you and what you like. But for me, a watch is a standard part of my kit, and I think it's a big part of why I've always managed to come back from these shoots with a working phone. Any other watch nerds out there? Let me know. Okay, moving on, I also think sunglasses are pretty much mandatory on outdoor shoots, at least for me, and I always bring a pair no matter what the weather says it's gonna do. Because even if it's not sunny, if it's snowing at an angle or raining in your eyes, it can get super hard to see, and glasses help a lot. Plus, if you're sitting in a bush hoping to film a moose or something, squinting at the horizon for hours and hours can really suck. I've had the same pair of Oakley Holbrooks for maybe 6 years, and they work great for me. But it's up to you and what you like. The real reason I like these though is because they're light and because they stay on my face. There's nothing worse than a pair of like cool Ray-Bans or something that keep sliding down your nose, especially when you start sweating. And it drives me insane if I have to keep my hands off the rig all the time to keep pushing them back up. Plus, it just kind of makes you look like a dork, so there's that too. The other reason I like Oakleys in general though is because of how easy it is to get new lenses for them. As you might guess from all the bushwhacking and stuff I do, I scrape scratch the crap out of my sunglasses, and usually after a year or two they get really hard to see out of. With cheaper glasses, that's sort of the end of the road, but with a company like Oakley, I can get a replacement set overnighted if I need to. That means I can hold on to the same pair for years, which makes the higher price tag worth it in the end. In terms of polarized or not polarized, I generally like non-polarized lenses just because you don't get any weird effects when you're looking at a digital screen. If you ever looked at your phone through polarized glasses, you know it's kind of annoying, and when you're trying to film something, it's, you know, not ideal. It's great to be able to see through reflections and all that, but you know, if there's a big purple line through your frame, it's a little hard to work. And last thing I'll say about glasses and camera work is to get a neck strap or a croaky or whatever it is they're called where you live. They instantly make you look less cool. But as a camera operator, I need to take my glasses on and off all the time to get a better look at the monitor. And if I hang them off my shirt or put them back on my head like this, it just means I'm gonna lose them pretty quickly. The big reason why I think I've been able to keep these for so long is that every time I need to take them off, I just drop them straight off my face and they don't go anywhere. So yeah, not the coolest look out there, but it's way better than feeling them slip off the back of your head and into the river. And then wrapping it up, even though I just said earlier that I try not to pull out my phone all that much, I'm still obviously carrying one all the time. There's lots of camera apps that only run through a phone, things like Sunseeker to check the trajectory of the sun, or the DJI app for drones, and so you more or less have to have one these days, as we all know. I'm currently using an iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is not in my hand because I'm filming on it right here, and I actually got it on a shoot last year that was running low on budget, and so they gave me the phone instead of cash for renting my gear. I don't care that much about getting the newest and best, and I wasn't planning on buying this phone, but I have to say it's been nice only because the camera's so good. I know the 17 is even better, but I tend to like to use my stuff until it's destroyed, so I have no plans to upgrade anytime soon. A couple things I really like about it compared to the older models though is the dedicated camera button, which all the tech reviewers seem to think was stupid, but I love. When you're wearing gloves and want some BTS footage or a reference photo or something, it's so much easier just to push the side button instead of messing with the touchscreen. Plus I'm often covered in water or dirt, so it's just nice to have a physical button. Apart from that, a couple critical apps would be Sunseeker, like I said. I also like the Blackmagic camera app a lot to have full manual control out there if you want to, you know, shoot something that you can only get with a phone and not a camera, and you want it to look as close as possible to match it with something else. Great to be able to set everything independently. Then any gear specific apps like the one I use for my sliders or my gimbal, and that's pretty much it. If I have a backpack, I'll also probably bring along an anchor battery like this one to keep the phone going at all times and also recharge a lot of other camera accessories, but I don't know if it falls under EDC rules because it's not physically on my body, and the ones I have are too heavy to kind of put in your pocket. If it does count, cool. If not, then let me know in the comments, I guess. So there we go, the EDC of a survival cameraman. I know my stuff isn't quite as slick as some of the other videos out there, but over the years I've learned that I don't really need that kind of stuff. I need reliable basics that just don't break. And if that's the kind of thing you're into as well, then hopefully this video is helpful. See ya.